Hello and welcome to Female Voices, Life and Loss. And I am your host today. It's me, Teresa Reiniger. So today's conversation is about the stories we carry and the ones we were never told. Some stories shape us through presence, others shape us through absence, through silence, through what was never spoken, and what we only come to understand maybe later in life. So I am honored to welcome my guest, Brittany, today to the podcast. Brittany is these accolades, but listen close. Brittany is an award-winning digital marketing strategist, a TED Talk speaker, community storyteller, an Amazon best-selling author. She is also the founder of Rich Mamas Club, a powerful national networking support working mothers in building generational wealth, leadership, and community. So that's what Rich Mamas is. So, wow. So beyond all of her accolades, Brittany's work lives at the intersection of culture, storytelling, and legacy, helping individuals and communities amplify their voices and preserve the stories that matter most. So today, we're diving into her anthology project, What My Mother Never Told Me, a deeply meaningful exploration of the unspoken, the inherited, and the truths we uncover as we grow. I'm excited about this conversation for everyone who is wondering, what did I not know? Or what was I never told? Or how do I make meaning of that now? Brittany, I am so grateful. I feel so honored to have you here with me today. To sit down and just have a great conversation. So welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you, Teresa. And Wayna, I'm so sorry. Like, Wayna is a founder of Rich Mama's Club, and she's asked me like
Yeah.
3 different times, and my schedule just never aligns. So much so that Wayna is not here recording with us. But Wayna, please know I love you, and please turn it to my head and not my heart. But I'm excited to
Yeah.
be a part of the podcast instead of listening. You guys have
Yeah.
interviewed a lot of our members, and all of the stories have been great. So I'm excited to be here today.
Yeah, like you said, we have been trying to get this scheduled for, I know it's been at least a year. So I'm glad that we finally have done it. Three very, very busy women and busy schedules. So I'm really glad that we're doing it now. So I want to start with really what inspired this anthology, What My Mother Never Told Me. What was the moment or realization that sparked this project? Tell us about that.
For sure. So, you've attended like one of our mixers before, but
Mm-hmm.
I have been hosting events for moms for like the last 4 years. Actually, our 4 year anniversary is in July, and just different mixers. So we have Mama's Night Out, the Working Mama Mixer, different things that are within like our infrastructure of the organization. And one
Mm-hmm.
question that I usually ask when we're like in a mixer or a sister circle is, what's something that your mother never told you? I come up
Mm-hmm.
with this question because, one, when I had my daughter, no one prepared me for postpartum. Let me just say that no one prepared me for postpartum. If you know, moms, if you're watching from wherever, you know the main thing that when you become pregnant, they're worried about what you're going to do in the delivery room. Like, don't take the epidural. Like, you need a doula. You need this. Like, all the things, right? And I had so much anxiety, especially with Black women, having high infant mortality rate, and like just
Mm-hmm.
so many different things. So I spent so much time preparing to become a mom in the delivery room. No one prepared me for when they hand you that baby and they say, okay, here you go. Like, like all of the things, and then you make it back home. My daughter had jaundice, which is very popular, or very common. Let
Mm-hmm.
me say it's very common among
Yeah.
mothers. And I was like, I didn't have preeclampsia, but they like monitored it a lot. And then I actually toured when I delivered, which I didn't know I had stitches. So I came home with this child that we had to go back and forth to the hospital about 4 or 5 times in 1 week, while I'm also trying to recover from having stitches and giving birth. And it's also COVID, right? So this is 1 year. This is
Uh,
2021,
mm,
where like they're just now allowing a second person to be in the delivery room. That was a fight for a lot of people. So like when I say this, I was in the fight of my life, and it sparked postpartum anxiety. I've always been a person that's had anxiety, but I was just like, I feel like for me, I like to be prepared. So this question came as like, everyone's like, oh, this is common. This is common. Like I kept hearing that like the first month of my daughter's life, this is common. I'm like, well, no one ever talks about it. Like, this is just like, I'm having a whole meltdown. Like, no one talks about it. You talk about it's common. Like, it's not common knowledge. It's not common knowledge. So I made this
yeah.
Facebook post and I was like, no one prepares you for postpartum. And then I went live and I just talked about all the things that I had went through in the week of her being born and just feeling like I wanted to give up. And
Mhm,
this post went viral. So many women like were chiming in because, this is also the second baby boom when a lot of people were
mhm.
having babies and everything. And that's how Rich Mama's Pill was born. So this
Wow.
anthology project has been um years in the making because the stories that I hear after I
Sure.
ask people, I'm like, yo, like, okay, I need to do something with this. So
Yeah, I love that. And I have been at, like you said, one of those mixers, and that question got asked. And the very first one that I went to, I remember answering it, what my mother never told me. And right now, for the life of me, I don't know what I said, but I remember answering that question for sure. And things are common, but I think there's so many things that are very, very common that we're never told. So, why do you think that? I don't think it's on purpose, but in your experience, why do you think there's so many stories? There's so many things like that, especially with families that go really unspoken.
for
Is it
sure.
because they think it's super common, or somebody else will tell you, or what do you think that
I
is?
think there's
Or what
multiple
have you
things, right?
found?
Like
Yeah.
there's
Okay.
generational, like I think we've romanticized motherhood. We romanticize life often. Like so
Hmm.
you can
Hmm.
talk to someone about the Great Depression and they might tell you it was the best of times because to them few things happen. We often like can romanticize like hard times. That's just
Hmm.
psychology. With me being a historian, psychologically we think about the good more than the bad, unless it's been as a bad situation. And motherhood, it's like,
Sure.
oh, this is the best time in my life. It was the best day of my life. And let me tell you, I had like my delivery was fine, but after
Uh
that
huh.
meltdown that came, like it was not. And for the life of me, I never wanted to forget that pain because I feel like people come into motherhood and it starts stems in, like the postpartum baby blues and depression and all the things that like they're like, why is this happening? Because we're truly not prepared. We don't have a village. So I feel like that day I made it my goal to not forget the struggles, especially when we're like in this
Hmm.
Instagrammable society where everything is like, everything's perfect. It looks good. The baby has on this cute bow. And people don't know, like you went through 50 million hurdles to get the bow on a child's head to make it to the circus or breast, all the things. So it's just that I think that's the thing why it sparks so much in the community, and it really brings healing and resolve like none other. Like I didn't know this, like I figured it out, and it really helps people to tap back into like that internal resilience that we have as a
Yeah, I think we suppress, to your point. I think we suppress those painful things, those moments in delivery or raising children or just right after. We kind of suppress those because we do want to remember because we have this beautiful little baby. And of course, I think that's just part of nature to suppress all of that negative, hurtful thing because what a miracle we now have in our life. So, as you worked on this project, what did you discover about your own relationship with your mom?
yeah. So that's a great question. Because I actually
Because she didn't tell you.
my chapter is different too. Like I'll
Okay.
say that every
Okay.
chapter, it's 12 authors that are in this
Oh, yeah,
anthology
yeah.
project. And I actually
I
just
love that.
read my chapter to my mom a few days ago and I was like, hey, I want you to listen to this. My chapter was more about my chapter is entitled Fellowship. and the need
Okay.
for women relationships and motherhood. And I
Okay.
just talked about, my upbringing. I went to 13 different schools, 13 different, like I kind of talk about like my hurdles and really being able to be a part of a community and how I struggle with identity. And like, I feel like my mom, like, always like, hey, that's not your friend. That's not your friend. So I had like this quiet resentment for her. And my story, the twist is that she never told me that it was more about like discerning character than it was not having relationships.
Oh.
So it's like all of the all
Mhm.
of the stories have a bit of a twist. So it's not like, hey, like, oh, my mom didn't do this, I'm unprepared. Like there's so many different stories of like, hey, no, oh, I get. So my story is more like, oh, mom, I get it. I get what you were trying to tell me. But as a
Yeah.
child, and even like I'm 35 now, like I didn't have the frontal cortex or like
Yeah. The
to be able to
understanding,
understand
sure.
what was really happening. So like I said, every chapter just has different things where it's like, yeah, like now we're in realization of like what womanhood is like, what motherhood really is. So it's less of like, but that generation messed it up, and it's more of like, I get it. I get my mom. I get my mom.
Yeah, wow. I love that. I love that because she sort of what I'm hearing you say is that she sort of told you, but you didn't have an understanding until you got older and then that realization came.
Okay.
And it's interesting that you talked about identity because I think all of that, everything that we learn from our mothers especially shapes really who we are. It really shapes the identity. So she was doing an amazing job at shaping that when you were very, very young. Would you agree with that?
I think she had amazing intents. Let me say this, 'cause it wasn't
Yeah.
when I went through my first divorce, where I got to really tell her like, "Hey, this caused harm to me in this way, us always moving."
Mm,
So, I think where we are now, which is the good thing, me and my mom have an impeccable relationship now, like,
that's
where we
awesome.
can talk about different things, and there's so many layers. But like I said, I think that getting to a point where you can mature and then understand the dynamic of what's happening at that time, which is I'm
Hmm.
again, I'm a historian and I love studying history, but when I could look at what was happening in that time with like the No Child Left Behind Act, with neighborhoods just really even recently being integrated in the 90s here in St. Louis, when I
Hmm.
could look at like I understand more. So I think that like when people open this book and they're reading the different chapters, like you can just understand the different cultural dynamics, the
Okay.
difference in generations, so many things. It's so good. When I say I
Yeah.
cry every time I read a chapter, I'm like, this is so good. Like it's good.
Well, and when I think of the title, I think of things like if somebody's listening, like if because it's like what did they forget to tell me? Are there secrets? Are there family secrets? So I would say if someone's listening who feels like there is a gap kind of in their story, like there was a secret, how do you begin to process or even grieve? Because that's my jam is talking about how we process and grieve things. How do we really do that when we didn't receive information to
Mhm.
support us? So, just with working with this woman, is there anything that you can share to the listeners? Like, how did they begin to really process and grieve things that they were never told?
Mhm.
Because it's part of our identity too. I mean, it really shapes us.
Yes. Okay, so there's this
Does
book
that
I
make sense?
absolutely love. It does. No, it's great.
Okay.
I'm thinking about just like where I am now and learning
Yeah.
and growing. There's this book called Future Self Now by Dr.
Mm.
Benjamin Hardy. And his theory is that the present determines the past. And when he says this, it's like how you are navigating the present is determined on how you view your past. So for me, I just was
Uh-huh.
recently elected an older person here. And part of
Uh-huh.
that was wanting stability for my child and not having to move. This is the home that she knows. But my neighborhood has declined, so many other things. So like I think that if I hadn't had a mom that always tried to move us somewhere better, I wouldn't be trying to build something better, right? So when I think about being able right? Yeah, processing grief
Mm.
differently, like how you view the past. Like there's been so many hurdles and obstacles and things that I've had in my life that some people like would not even want to wake up and try anymore. But I think that being
Uh-huh.
able to
Uh-huh.
accept the past, grieve, being able to grieve and sit in it, and just kind of
Uh-huh.
understand it's a different level of grace
Uh-huh.
that you have for other people, and then a different amount of accountability you have to have as a woman like, okay, now how am I choosing to navigate this now? Like that didn't make or break me, but it definitely for me, I don't romanticize the past, but I definitely acknowledge the strengths that it gave me. Going to 13,
Mm,
there's not a room that I go in where I don't feel like I'm good enough because I've had to go through some of the
mm,
worst with always being the new kid, right? Having a parent that was, 30 plus years older than my mom, I can sit with elders and I know how to glean. Like I look at so your question was like, how do you grieve it? Like reading that book and really understanding that like your past has so much to do with your present and how you view.
absolutely.
So I think and that happened in a grief situation going through my first divorce. When I got to sit and I was like, how did I get here? And then I looked at all the things, my attachment style, like how I was always like craving identity and closeness because I was always ripped away from different homes. Like I got to
Sure.
so I ignored all the signs of like this wouldn't be a good relationship for me because I wanted it so bad. So like I think that
Mhm.
being able to grieve and dealing with my grief was accountability for me. And if this didn't make or break me, like how do I move forward?
Yeah, I love that. And yeah, a lot of the work that I do is really helping women understand why they grieve like they grieve. And
Mhm,
many times they do that because of how they were taught to grieve. And it could be like in your instance, just what kind of I'm hearing you say, and you can say, yeah, Teresa, no, that's not true. You grieve a certain way. There is grief attached to every time that you moved. So it did very much shape you. And I can totally understand now when you go into a room, those
mhm.
emotions surface. It's how you're programmed from all of those things. And I'm just going to say what came to mind when you were talking about that for a long, 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 long time with having 12 siblings. I was like, I I hated that. I
Mm,
absolutely hated that I did not get or have what other people received because there were so many of us. You can only imagine. But now I look at that totally different because I know where I'm at in my life. It has really supported me. It helps me now, especially with the loss of my mom, that I really can understand more fully how people grieve differently,
mm,
how they store emotions, how their perception is of we were all in the same house and doing the same things, raised by the same parents, but we all perceive things very, very different. And we grieved our parents very, very different. And I look at that now as a blessing. And I really can relate to many, many, many people now because I've experienced relating and understanding different learning styles and personalities and whatever for my entire life.
mhm.
So, and I'm a huge listener now. I'm very intent on listening because I was not the one that spoke all the time. I was a listener as an introvert. So I kind of relate that sort of to that yes, everything. And it is important for us to look at the past. And really, what I'm going to say is be grateful for that. Sometimes that's hard when upbringings were really hard, but this is what I know. You have gained some things from that. You've gained strength in many ways. There's been things that has really shaped your life. And it's important for us to think about those things. How did those things shape your life? So even though the stories might not have been told, there might have been some misinformation and not shared. There's so much value when we think about those things. I'm excited to read this book for sure.
We're going to
So share some more about, if you can, share some more about what's in the book. What can we expect? Because you said all of the stories are kind of different.
They are so different, and I just sent it off, so it'll be out when this episode airs.
Airs? Hmm.
There's
Yeah.
one, especially what you talking about, grief and, loss in this particular podcast platform. There's a chapter called Invisible Mama. It's early in the book
Mm,
from one of our co-authors, and when I read that chapter, her take on the loss of a child, it was so eloquently put. Such a It's a story that I think people will relate to. I love that chapter. It's definitely, like I said, there's so many different things in the book, so many stories like about biracial child not being able to do her hair because her mother was white and couldn't deal with.
Sure.
There's just so many, like, different facets of stories and divorce and what is it? What do they call it? Blended family stories. Like, when I say the book has everything, I'm so grateful to God that He allowed me to bring this group of women together. We have women
That's
from
awesome.
5 different cities that contributed to this book. And every chapter, that was like the biggest challenge. Is like, okay, this is a little bit heavy. I need a trigger warning here. Oh, this is light. Oh, this wraps it up. This is, uplifting. So just making sure that the stories, like, it was a nice flow. So we're actually delayed with even like releasing it to the public, just because I wanted to make sure that when people grabbed it, they could resonate with the stories, but it left them on a high at the end. So, like I said,
Oh,
it
good.
has twists and turns. And when I say like the level of transparency and vulnerability that the women put in this book, I'm so proud. I'm so proud of the project. I'm so proud of it.
I love it. I love it. I guess anthologies are fairly new because I don't remember reading anthologies years ago, and myself too am in a book, part of an anthology that was released probably about 3 years ago. So I love them because, especially when I run into somebody that's in a book, I usually pick them up or grab it wherever, it's sold or whatever, or get it from them because many times authors have them. So I would say, little plug here, buy it from the author straight from them so that they benefit more from it, I will say. Have them sign it, autograph it, all of the things. But it's so nice to be able to just go to their chapter and read it, and then go to another chapter and read that story. Like, it's not, you have to read the whole book to get to the what happens at the end of the story. They're very quick reads, usually the chapters are. So I love doing that because I don't know. I'm one that I want a happy ending. I want to hear about people. I want that. So I love anthologies. Totally love them.
Now, this is my first time curating an anthology, but I've also contributed to them, and I've
Yeah.
released a solo project as well. So when I think about, and I've never read an anthology through and through, but that's why I took so much care with this one, that it was a flow to it, where it's like, oh, that was it. Like, I want to read another one. So because, like, to
Hmm.
that point, if you know one author in it, you're probably just gonna go and try to read theirs. But I
Yeah.
wanted it to be a body of work where you're like, okay, this, and our goal for this project was to get 100 copies into first time moms' hands, so that they can
Oh,
feel like,
nice.
oh, I'm not alone in this. So that was our overall goal, for it to be like not a manual. It's not, because I believe motherhood's not a monologue, right? A monologue, but to be something where you feel less alone. You feel less
Hmm.
alone. You can
Hmm.
see yourself. If it's not in this story, then you kind of understand your mom over here, your aunt over here, maybe even your grandmother, because our oldest contributor is like in her 60s and our youngest is like in her
Wow.
20s. So when I say it's a great collection of stories, and I hope that
Hmm.
I really try to put a lot of intention of where it was something where you have it. It's like, I wouldn't see it that way. This might come from a biblical perspective. This might be, hey, she's just a few years
Sure.
out the club, like whatever that might look like, and in between, or she's sending kids off to college. She's new, like, so it's so much of where it's like our community. If you've ever been to, like our retreat or event, like, it's such a diverse group of women
I love that.
that are really just committed to being in fellowship, committed to being in community, like being in a village where it's like, oh, I see you, you know?
I love
So
that.
I hope
I
that
love that.
people feel seen when they pick up the book.
I love that. And you do some other type of storytelling stuff as well, right?
Yeah.
And I think with that there's a lot of like healing generational patterns and rewriting narratives for future generations. Share a little bit about that as well.
Yes,
Cuz
let
that
me just say
goes with
this.
the book and storytelling. I'm like, "Oh, this kind of all
And
blends
I have
together
to
to
say,
me."
that's all God. As much as like I consider
Yeah.
myself a strategist, so much of life has been just like a natural flow and like, oh, this is a good art. Like, oh, this sounds cool. Let me kind of
Mm,
move into that. So I
mhm.
actually I'm a docent, and if you don't know what a docent is, they're like a history exhibit kind of like storyteller. But the difference in like
Okay,
my particular programming is I learned Black St. Louis history and
okay,
different narratives. And it joined in that program. There's a historic neighborhood here called the Ville, which my maternal line was from. But during the program, I learned about an area called Mill Creek Valley, which was devastated by urban renewal, which is kind of like an
right.
American horror story, in my opinion, of a lot of
Mhm.
poor and Black communities across the country. But my paternal line was from this neighborhood, and I kind of learned that through the through the program, and comparing history and remembering stories and different things. So now I'm like 8 months out of it, and now I'm doing history tours at the St. Louis History Museum and across the city. So people come from across
Nice.
the region to come and do tours. Where I'm telling the story of displacement, but not only displacement. I think that's the narrative for Mill Creek Valley itself, but upward mobility, and how our region was truly a place where people came from all over the world, foreign immigrants and people from the South fleeing Jim Crow to come here because it was a prosperous place. But
Mhm.
so it's so many different things. Like the first tour that I rode, is called The Cost of the Crown, and it's about the story of Black wealth in St. Louis. So highly
Mm.
recommend if you like history, and I'm a pretty cool storyteller. I had a group today of 30 people from different walks of life, and that was like my largest tour that I've
Wow.
done in person. And it's an art to tell stories where it leaves people thinking. I'm wondering like
Yeah.
what we can do different. And like I said, I think that ties back to the past. The present determines the past, like how you see it. For me, learning about history and becoming a storyteller led me into public office, right? Like, I was like, oh, hold
Okay.
on, like this was done, this was done, this was done. We can do that again. So it gave me motivation to create a different future where some people will just, get angry. So I think when we're looking at loss and life and navigating, we could always keep on a lens that, history leaves clues, but then history is also incomplete. We're making history right now, you know?
Yes.
One day, we're gonna pull out the archives for Female Voices, Life
Yeah.
is Lost. I'm like, "Oh my god, I remember when they were talking about that." Like, history is incomplete.
Yeah. I love that. I love that you shared that because I wasn't sure all what you did with that, but that's very fascinating.
Okay.
And yeah, I'm gonna have to probably connect with you and come over and learn some things sometime when I'm in St. Louis. So the other thing that you do a lot, and that's how we got connected through Wayna, was the Rich Mamas Club. And I know that you do a lot of work with that, and you really help women step into leadership, ownership of their voice. What shifts when people truly claim, I'm going to say, because we're talking about stories, what truly shifts with women when they claim their story, who they really are?
I think the thing that women experience the most when they're coming into our community and I work this is the thing too. I'm 35, but our top members and even clients that have hired me off for like life coaching and things are
Mhm,
40 plus, like are 40 plus, and it's like
mhm,
really reclaiming relationship and not doing it alone. Like there's this myth of being a strong woman, of a myth of being, you can handle it all, or superwoman. And
mm,
what people reclaim, a new story that they get to tell is like, I get to do this with friends. I can experience joy. I can like, cause I think that's the big misconception about life, is that people think it's our accolades, our degrees, where we
mm,
live that truly make our experience in life great, when really it's who we share these experiences with, who we get to be like,
mhm,
who is there when you're crying, who is there when you to celebrate you. I think that it's always easy to find someone to mourn with you. Like people will come to the funeral, but who will
mhm,
celebrate life with you? And all the stuff in between. I think that's the new
mhm,
story that people get to tell in our community, especially when you feel like you've been siloed. Like life can find a way of, are you a part of this organization? Did you grow up here? Did you live in this? Like all those things that separate us in our community, people find their voice in fellowship.
Yeah. So with those women that you believe that they need fellowship and maybe they're really exploring their untold stories that they're not sure of, what are a few gentle ways they can start exploring those things and
Mm,
stepping into leadership and ownership and all of those things? What do you how do you guide people? Because you just talked about life coaching with some women. What would be a couple of things that you would share with them?
that's so good. So let's pretend I
Yeah.
don't even just tell you this story about a session I did yesterday.
Okay.
Woman, she's younger like me, but super ambitious, also like me. And she was like,
Mhm.
"Hey, I'm thinking about my career trajectory and I really want to, to take this path as becoming an adjunct. Can you help me?" I'm like, "Absolutely. I teach adjunct." And I dig a little bit
Mhm.
deeper. So in this situation, what she really was looking for was long-term sustainability. And necessarily because like
Sure.
anybody who teaches adjunct, it is not a good paycheck. Like it's not a good
Mhm.
paycheck. So we were able to kind of like reverse engineer. And basically she was like, "Hey, I'm looking at my managers. I'm looking at have this degree, have this. So I'm gonna go and get this degree." So really it's just like, hey, but what's the ultimate goal? And for her it was longevity, it was
Yeah.
stability. Like so I was able to ask those questions. And then and before I was like, "Hey, we can definitely all day. You want to become an adjunct professor? Okay, we have the relationships. We can set you up. I have the templates, the blueprint to be able the frameworks, that's the word, the frameworks to help you to become so. But is
Mhm.
that what you really want?" So I asked her just, just a different series of questions. And then her homework assignment was to write 2 bios. I want you to write a bio for a year from now from, what you desire, you say that you want right now, and what does she look like? And then I
Yeah.
want you to give me a bio from 5 years from now with, the alternative of like, hey, yes, this is the corporate route, but what could entrepreneurship look like? Because I believe that women, it's not one or the other, right? I'm a fourth generation entrepreneur, but I've had jobs here and there. And I kind of like, I find a way to do both of them. But it's like, what is the ultimate end goal? And then the last question I left her with is like, okay, it's your results are all
Mm.
dependent on who you are willing to become.
Yeah.
Who are you
Yeah.
willing to become? Because the person who, you say you want to become this professor and like truly to be a professor, not an instructor, right? To be a professor, to have this tenure at a university, like a prestigious university, there's
Mhm.
life in between then. But here's the thing, if it's about money, you can make money tomorrow. But
Mhm.
person who's claiming a multi six-figure salary and then a person that's has a professor at a prestigious university, the time in between is all about who you're willing to become. And
Yeah.
who you're willing to become, it depends on your association. It depends, like it's so many, not only association but just your identity. So for me, when
Mhm.
I'm working with women, it's having an identity shift. It's having collapsing time for them. It is just changing their association with what they believe was necessary to become. You get what I'm so and I'm saying I'm
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
things, but that's what like coaching looks like for me with women.
Yeah.
And it's truly transformational because it's usually like a woman 45, 50, like who has multiple degrees. And when I say I sit down with, I have doctors, lawyers, politicians like that I sit down with and we have massive breakthroughs, right?
Yeah. Love that.
One of my favorite clients is just had her first seven figures, excuse me, seven figure year last year. And
Nice.
the things that you thought would have had a breakthrough for her, it was all psychological.
I think that's very, very common. It's all our mindset and things that we have could have been programmed into us from long ago, not intentional, but even like you talked about walking into a room and that feeling that carries on with you for the rest of your life. And so many, many times there's something that has happened to create this unworthiness that I'm not good enough. Whether you're a doctor or a lawyer or whoever you are, those things are still there and to shift that mindset. And really, I think for me, when I do a lot of coaching because of my training with neurolinguistics programming, really is diving deep into that and surfacing all of those things because once they surface and there's an understanding of why they believe that, and it was because of 13 moves, or it was because of a whole lot of siblings, or it was because of whatever. It's like, now I can change that. And I love when you use the word, and you used it several times, willing. What
Mm.
are you willing to do? And what are you willing to put the effort in to get what your desires are? And we have to really be willing to do that. It doesn't just happen. Everybody has to be willing to do it and put in the time to do that. So I'm glad that you shared all that. Share really quick another time, because I said it at the beginning, because we talked about the anthology. Share anything like that for the listeners, where they're going to be able to find that, what the title is, all of those things before we conclude today. I want them to know all.
Absolutely. So at the time of this airing, you can grab it from Amazon. You can also grab it from Barnes and Noble. And we are not selling them directly on our sites because our goal is to
Okay.
distribute them locally through parents as teachers and other things. So we have a different monetary goal. So I am the girl that you can buy it wherever it's available because it's not as much about the money as it is the message getting out and getting it into
Nice.
a first time mom's hand, a transitioning mom, a new empty nester, just for her to, again, feel seen. That's the goal. So
Mhm.
wherever you look up what my mother never told me, it's curated by myself, Brittany Raji Alberty, but we have 12 other contributing authors. So Amazon, Barnes and Noble. It will be on our website as well, but probably later. But yeah, you can grab it on
Nice.
wherever books are sold.
Good, good. Yeah, that's what I was wondering. And hopefully, it will be in some local bookstores and stuff in the St. Louis area for sure, or those 5 communities that you talked about, that there are authors in those areas. So I appreciate so much you coming on today and sharing with us, sharing all of this information. I'm sure this episode will be out in May. So I love that we will make sure that it comes out during that time, during Mother's Day, May. So if you're a mother and you're sitting here and you're listening to this conversation today, what is something you want her to know? Something that you now understand differently. What do you want that woman to know real quick?
So good. You said quick. I think you aren't alone. Keep trying. Keep trying to find your
Yes.
people.
Yeah,
Your people are out there for you, and you will work all of your best efforts to feel seen, to feel loved, and to be supported.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. So this conversation, so powerful. A reminder that our stories don't just live in what was said.
Mhm.
They many times live in what we're still discovering, all of the things, and, still in questioning and still making meaning of. So, Brittany, your work has created space for honesty, for reflection, and for healing in such a meaningful way here in the St. Louis area. Can't wait to get my hands on What My Mother Never Told Me is the title, and it's an invitation to all of you to invite you to look deeper, to listen differently, and to give voice to what may have been silent for a very long time. But to anyone listening, if something in this conversation stirred within you, I encourage you to stay with it. Maybe it's a question, a memory, or even a feeling you haven't fully explored yet. Your story, spoken or unspoken, matters. So, Brittany, thank you for being here, for sharing your voice, and for the work that you're doing to help others do the same.
Thank you for having me. And make sure that you guys
Sure.
like, comment, and subscribe and follow Female Voices. Like, Mom, you guys are brilliant. Thank you for all that you're doing. I just want to make sure I give you
Yeah.
as much flowers. You guys are a dynamic duo. Wayna, Teresa, keep doing the work.
Thank you so much. So until next time, this is Teresa Reiniger with Female Voices Life&Loss. Thank you for being here and holding space for my conversation with Brittany. As you move through your days, may you feel held, supported, and not so alone on your journey. And reminding and remembering that even the hardest moments, there is still space for healing and hope. Thanks for joining us.